Welcome in, this is our Bob Gurr Living by Design premiere video. Like, subscribe for more, contact us on Jared's Journeys, and enjoy the video. We're at the red carpet for the Bob Gurr movie premiere. Woo-hoo!
We're ready to begin the show just as soon as everyone has taken their seat. As I understand it, they're incredibly comfortable, so please try them out. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please welcome to the stage your host for the evening, the Ambassador of America, Charles Phoenix.
Oh, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Welcome to the legendary landmark Alex Theater, right here in glorious Glendale. I'm sure we all love saying glorious and Glendale together, I know. Tonight, we are gathered here to experience the world premiere of Bob Gurr, living in, wait, I wrote it on my finger. Oh, living like it's a test in school. Living by Design! And may I ask, where do we begin to behold the glory of how much we all seriously love, admire, and love Bob Gurr? Where do we begin? I know. Or as I accidentally called him the other day on Instagram, it was a typo, Bob Gurr. I know, spell check, hello. So you guys, very exciting. Backstage, I was talking to Bob just now, and since he grew up in Glendale, I said, Bob, like when you were a little kid or whatever, since this theater is 100 years old, oh, I'm not making an age reference, but I said, did you ever come to this theater when you were a child? By the way, just for the record, Bob is not 100 years old. The theater is, though. And he said, yes, my little sister and I, we used to play in the forecourt, and my dad had a suit and tie shop a few doors down called Harry Gurr's Suit and Tie Shop. How much do you love that? I know. We love these little juicy personal tidbits of information, don't we? And then he said, after that, he had Harry Gurr's Sandwich Shop. And he said his mother would drive he and his little sister down to like spend the day at his dad's work, and they didn't want to stay in the shop the whole time, so they would just run around, but they could only run around 2 blocks of downtown Glendale. So I know, I love all that. And by the way, did I already say, or not seriously, that Bob Gurr is the greatest Disney Imagineer? Did I already say that? You can never, ever overstate, you can never say it too much. So, okay, now you guys, I have to be all poised and proper and dignified because Bob Gurr, I have to be poised, proper, and dignified now. Because before we begin the movie, we have a special guest to present Bob with a formal commendation from the city of of the Angels. Yes, recognizing Bob's legendary contributions, not just to themed environmental entertainment, but to the city of Los Angeles as well. I know. So, Los Angeles City Councilwoman Monica Rodriguez is a proud daughter of immigrants and is making history as the third Latina elected in the city's 240-year history to the City Council, and she represents I gotta read this. She represents the district she's called home for her entire life. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm, rousing welcome to the voice of the Valley, Monica Rodriguez.
Good evening, everyone. It is such an honor to be here with all of you celebrating this wonderful, incredibly talented, and imaginative individual that has created so many life-changing memories for people around the world. If there wasn't a Bob Gurr, what would Main Street be like? How would we would have had to trek through to get to those front gates at Disneyland without that monorail. And God knows how much we rely on that. But it was an honor for me to hear all the wonderful stories. I heard Bob on KFI, and I listened to the entire segment, just listening for all the wonderful stories that he was sharing, that incredible history that was purely built on the imagination and curiosity of an individual that thought, what if? And if we all had a little bit of that spirit of what if, and that if we tried, think about how much more magical our lives would be. And it was for that reason that I also discovered that Bob lived in Tujunga in my district, that I immediately contacted Neil Saavedra at KFI and said, I need to get in touch with Bob because I want to honor him and make sure that he's in the history books for the city of Los Angeles for being one of the most remarkable individuals that has made such immense contributions for children and families around the world. And it's with that I am incredibly honored to introduce you all to the legendary man that is living by design. Please help me welcome the incredible, the legendary Imagineer, Bob Gurr.
Oh my gosh, I cannot believe what he said. I was 9 years old when I was running around this place. I'm going on 94 and I'm still running around this place. Sounds like I never went anywhere in life. Anyway, I got a secret. I have never seen this movie. But I got a good seat. You go 30% back in the house, you pick one, and you put all your family on the right, and all your good friends on the left side, and all everybody else behind you. I'm going to watch the movie.
Congratulations, Bob. And thank you, Monica Rodriguez. And now, it's time for what we've all been waiting for. So I'm going to kindly ask you, as I was requested to do, make sure your you-know-whats are silenced. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the world premiere of Bob Gurr, Living by Design!
Living by Design. To share a few words and acknowledgments, please welcome to the stage the film's director and lead producer, Frank H. Woodward. Producer and Bob Gurr's longtime manager, Ernie Alonzo. And producer, Joe Montana.
Yes, thank you everyone for coming tonight. This is a real honor for us all. As the man said, I'm Frank H. Woodward, the guy directing the film you just saw. And let me tell you, making this film, as you can imagine, was an honor and a joy for me. Following Bob around the camera, learning so much more about his life was amazing. Now, as a filmmaker, it goes without question that I cannot have made this film without the dedication and the hard work of my crew. Most of who are here today, along with people who were generous enough to appear on camera. If everybody has a moment, please, anybody who's involved in the film, stand up for a second. You really deserve a round of applause. Let's go up there. The film is not easy at all. I also wanted to thank Alex Theater for Justin. I want to thank the Alex Theater for welcoming us into their home for the premiere. Right? It's 100 years old. It's pretty cool. Then last, but nowhere near least, I have to thank the man of the hour, Mr. Bob Gurr.
When I first brought the idea to Bob about doing a documentary on his life, I was actually a little bit nervous. He likes to remind me that there's so much information about him already online and that there's really no reason to do anything else. The only thing is that a lot of it, he says, is inaccurate, and that's it bothers him a bit. So I thought, well, that's a perfect reason to retell the story. But we didn't just want to rehash what's already out there. We wanted to tell his story, not just about what Bob built, but how he thinks, how he lives, and what drives him. I remember calling Bob one day and saying, I want you to meet with a couple of guys that I met about doing the film. As always, Bob was curious but cautious. Reluctantly, he told me that he would listen to their 2-minute elevator speech. Remember that? But that's all he could promise. Then we all found ourselves in Bob's living room, and within minutes, they were all being grilled like only Bob can do. But in the end, they passed the Gurini test, and now we're all here tonight. Bob, here you are. Bob, thank you for trusting us. Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for letting us tell your story. Being your manager for the past decade has been an honor, a great adventure. We've done so much together, we've traveled to so many places, but more than that, you've been a joy. You've been a good friend, a kind and loving man, a fountain of wisdom for which I will always be grateful for. I love you, Bob. Thank you.
And finally, I'd like to thank you. We'd like to thank you, the audience. Some of you came from far distances to be here tonight. We really appreciate it. And the reception seems to be pretty good for this. Thank you so much. We hope this film has inspired you, as we've been inspired by Bob. And you can go out into the world and do things great, like Bob has done. Thanks so much. Oh, we're going to have a 10-minute intermission now, and then we'll be back with a short Q&A, well, relatively short. An interview Q&A with Bob, and then it's going to be conducted by Christopher Merritt, one of our favorite film Imagineers. and theme park designers, and he'll be up here in 10 minutes or so.
At this time, so that we begin the next portion of our show. Please make your way to your seats at this time. Thank you. Seats are lonely. Please return to them. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We hope you enjoyed the intermission and are ready for a very special conversation. Please welcome to the stage, former Disney Imagineer, theme park designer for multiple companies over a 35-year career, renowned historian, and author of in-depth books on Southern California theme parks, including the recently released Knott's Berry Tales, and the upcoming collaboration with Don Hahn, The Happiest Place on Earth, the incredible story of Walt Disney's Disneyland. Ladies and gentlemen, Christopher Merritt. And the man of the hour, he needs no introduction, but I'm gonna give him one anyway. Ladies and gentlemen, legendary Disney Imagineer, Bob Gurr!
Wow, this is incredible. Wow, this is amazing. Look at all this.
But I'm waiting for your questions.
Just get right to the pain, right? Is that the plan? Well, this is amazing. I was absolutely thrilled to see this film and just how wonderfully it captures your spirit, you know, and just kind of captures your philosophy of life. It's so much more than your love of cars and your love and all the incredible work you did at all the Disney parks and all the other theme parks over the world. It's just, it's incredible. So thank you for sharing that with us. So, I am going to do my George Carlin bit here because I've got some questions written down on index cards, but I want to make sure I don't miss anything on it, so I just have a few for you. I'm going to say that it's very appropriate that we are premiering this documentary about you at the Alex Theater. Charles Phoenix mentioned this earlier, but he said that this is part of the neighborhood where you grew up, right? And your father, it didn't make the final cut, but your father actually had a sandwich shop nearby, and so you actually spent a fair amount of time at this theater as a younger person, right?
Oh, absolutely. But parents didn't care where you went in the 30s. Within about 2 blocks when you're 8 or 9 years old, my father's shop was just down the next block. This forecourt is a playground. I can run around and do anything I want out here without being caught.
Did you ever sneak in and see, I mean, were they showing films at this time, or?
No, when I was 10, my father gave me some money and I'd come up here and watch movies.
Oh, great. Do you remember seeing any films here in particular, or?
You want me to remember the name? Yeah, when I went up the street where the Wizard of Oz came out, and I saw that came out.
Oh, wow, that must be a great memory. Wow, all right. Okay, well, like many people, I am really captivated by your stories of working on opening your Disneyland with Walt Disney. So in the film you say, and I want to get this quote right, the way Walt worked with people, he would have people who already had a craft or an experience. He'd ask them to do something they'd never done because he was only interested in someone that had their own curiosity. They were self-starters. They'd do their own research. He expected you to figure out what he wanted and what would be the best. So, I can't help but think about the Viewliner, which is basically a refurbished 54 Oldsmobile, if I have it right. But you also told me at one time that you were taken with GM's experimental aero train that used to run between Los Angeles and Vegas in 1956, and you were influenced by that. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
But what leads to that is, Walt was walking around one day and says, well, where the circus used to be, we got to put something in there. And we had a guy named Tony who lays railroads. And he said, well, we just put the stakes in, Tony will run wherever. He said, oh, and by the way, Bob will make a train to fit. And there's no time. I had this wraparound windshield, was going to be very expensive. I figured an Oldsmobile, 54 Oldsmobile 4-door, I'd go to the junkyard, get one, and throw the front and the back off. And then I've got the expensive parts done that's going to look really good. Yeah. And then my favorite engine was a small block Chevy V8, powered by transmission, a bunch of other stuff. And you store-bought stuff, you hook it together, you got a chassis, and you got the important part. I had a guy that builds Indy cars. We shaped the front end, welded that on, the rest of it, kind of straight metal to back end of it, and there's nothing to make on a train.
Wow. Easy as that. Do it at home, folks. So, would you file all those influences under, quote, always looking for something? Because that was something that would be very much a Walt thing, right?
The word curiosity, that'll cover everybody, every subject. Stop and think of that.
Yeah.
Some people are not curious, but the ones that are curious, it is insatiable and you cannot stop it. Walt had a sense of what are those kind of people. And he could start a project by a casual conversation. Say, we're thinking about this, we're thinking about that. Do you think it'll work? He would ask people. And then he might come back, like in the case of the monorail, which was alluded to in the film. He says, Bobby, the German train's not very attractive, so I want you to get going on ours right away. And he walked away. I mean, he did this to everybody. It might be a piece of sculpting or art. Yes, that's easy. He wants a whole monorail. But guess what? If you're curious, your head's full of ideas. You got a lot to relate to. You have that pencil and you have that piece of paper. And I'm not kidding you when I said I can draw it the way I want. And I got away with it just like that. Nobody ever gave me a production note in my life.
I can say that. That makes a lot of sense because I remember you used to say to me, you kids these days, all you do is sit in meetings and talk about it in meetings, and it's amazing to me that you working for Walt Disney, you come in, basically drop a bomb on you like that, walk out, and then you gotta go, you gotta do it.
We had no meetings.
I'm just saying.
No, the way it worked, everybody knew, generally, everybody they had to go talk to get an answer. And we had a telephone system. Just go get your own answer. Why do you wait for a meeting?
Good point. All right. So you have inspired so many people in the work you've done in the theme park industry throughout the years. And I know you were one of the people I really wanted to learn from when I was starting out in the business. So how does it feel knowing that not only have you designed so many vehicles that millions of people have enjoyed, but also that you inspire so many people to be curious and to learn things, and not just like theme park design, but also in life in general? Because I mean, you seem to live your life with this sense of wonder, and ever since I've known you, you've been this way. How does that feel?
Well, I hadn't. This is the first time I've ever seen the movie. I mean, I had never seen it. I got an impression that it's a big blend of so many people and so many ideas, all kind of drifting along. But if you go back to the early part of the movie, you have to be well-grounded in your craft that you're going to do, and if that is done correctly and you absorb it and added your own self-teaching and curiosity, you will have an easier job because you won't get yourself in a muddle later too close to the opening day and it has to be revived committee style, and then you have a piece of mush when you get all done. It has to be grounded well, and I hope you folks picked up that well-grounding all that time and picking up information, all these other directions, lets it be like a guy like Garner Holt today, and we can be working with the kids that he's got out there, and we can mentor people just so accurately the same way Mr. McMahon guided us early to be well-grounded.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. But do you ever stop to think about all these projects I've done and all these, not just the vehicles you design, but things like Kong and the things in Vegas and the pirate ship that was sinking. Do you think about the millions of people who've experienced your designs? Like, how does that feel?
I like it when somebody has a good time with something I drew up. And it didn't matter whether it was like a monorail in Walt Disney World slinking along in the sunset on that skinny little beam, or screaming kids trying to hide their eyes from King Kong, or people looking at a sinking ship and saying, how in the world did they do any of that? Well, I could make one sketch and show you how easy it was.
Pretty cool. All right, well, here's a little different tack. So several years ago, I was visiting you, and I was probably bugging you about Adventures in Outer Space, which I'm completely obsessed with, or something like that. But anyway, I was going through this very tough time in my personal life, and so anyway, when I was leaving, I remember asking you, Bob, how do you stay so positive? And basically what you said back to me was kind of a version of your story about when you were stuck in a traffic jam on the 405 and deciding, I'm not going to get mad, I'm going to appreciate taillight design. So like that is incredible to me. The other quote is, your unhappiness is only your improper reaction to a piece of reality. And that's a very Buddhist approach to things. Like, how did you come to that?
Over a long period of time, I watched people having an awful time, and I began to wonder, how come I don't have an awful time? And then I thought, maybe I need to know a little bit more about it. And then I was out of Burning Man about 15 years ago.
Of course you were.
And I was talking to a lady, and she was trying to ask, how do you do that? And while explaining to her, I was discovering what I had been doing. Simple word, also very simple. You expect to have a good, happy day every day, and you're never going to get it. All right? You have to understand what is reality, the reality that you're in at any given moment. You don't want to wish your way out or hope your way out of that. No, you can do two things. I can scream in reaction, stamp my feet, or I can stop and give it my best four-letter word, and then proceed you got to do that. And then you devise a recovery plan for your instant situation. And then you put that energy into that. You don't put negative energy into something. It's already happened, it's already done, and you can't wish it to come back. But you're going to go forward with the good energy you got. And you got to get used to it. And that's why the joke of the taillights, that really did happen. I found myself 4 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon with my convertible top down on 7 lanes of parking lot. This is infuriating, the 405. And I said, oh, I'm going to get taillights. And I did. By the time I got home, I parked the car and I came in the house and I said, that was kind of fun. And the idea, traffic jam being fun, I showed I can do it.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, okay, let's talk a little bit about Strawberry McMinn, and I am completely fascinated by your relationship with him in the film. You say he thrived on teaching, which is such a wonderful thing. And I was lucky enough to have a couple of Disney legends as mentors to me when I was just a student. And it seems like Strasser wasn't just your teacher, he was also your mentor and your friend. Would you agree with that statement?
Yes, it was not a joke that he was so strict that I disliked him. And actually, I asked him, do you like cars?
I can't believe you asked him that.
Yeah, and then I found out he is a judge with Concourse. He is a designer going way back to when he was 18 years old. His teacher was Frank Hershey, who was in 1929, was designing bodies for Duesenbergs. So this lineage from a Frank Hershey to a Strother McMinn all the way up to me, and then I'm passing it on to everybody else.
Right.
This lineage of absorbed knowledge, but particularly not just plain knowledge, what are you going to do and how are you going to do it right? You have to do it at the best possible possible thing you can do, and it doesn't matter what kind of trade you're in. But you've got to do that, and after a while it becomes easy because you're good at it, and the whole thing is a barrel of fun.
Wow. It almost seems like you were perfectly set up to work with Walt Disney and the kind of things that he was hoping to achieve, too, that level of quality.
But he had a way of asking in a manner that this sounded highly probable. In other words, this was not what we call today blue sky. Blue sky, without pragmatic anchors here and there, will let you spend all the money on a project and then you rip it out 2 years later.
Yeah.
You have to not do that. But it goes back to that passion, understand doing it right. And then it becomes actually easy.
Wow.
It really does.
Wow. Well, more about Strother. So in 1958, he designs this sports car of the future, right? The Le Mans Coupe. And that handmade model that you show in the film is so special and so unique. And I think, I was told, the team backstage wanted to surprise you with a little something. So are we ready with that backstage?
Yes, we are.
Why don't you come on out, folks?
Hey,
Are you
Bob.
pulling a trick on me?
I'm just kidding.
No, he's not.
Oh, James, oh my gosh, here's the guy who restored the car. Oh my gosh.
Thank you. Bob, I gotta tell you, I was a little nervous when I was going to meet you for the first time at Pebble. I really was. You know, in fact, my granddaughter came up to me, she says, Papa, somebody's kissing your car. And I said, that's just Bob being Bob. But you know, you have the Strother McMinn design model, okay? And you have the original designs on paper. And what we would like to do, my lovely wife Karen said, why don't we make Bob a final model of the final car? And this is it. So we want you to keep this.
Do I get to look at it now?
Yeah, you do.
Ooh. Oh, maybe you know how you wrap it. Maybe you can unwrap it. Huh? Oh my gosh. Oh.
Well, now the circle's complete, Bob. So, you know, Bob, I want to just make one comment. There you go. I hope you cherish this model as much as all of us cherish you. Yeah, absolutely. Enjoy it.
Only one more minute.
So we have about maybe 10 minutes or so left, and we thought it would be fun if we could take a few questions from the audience, if you're up for it, Bob.
Always.
All right, now I don't know quite how we're going to do this, or who's going to run interference out there. So I think, well, I'm not sure if we're going to have someone coming up with a mic or not, but I guess I'll just pick.
We have a microphone ready if you'd like to pick the questioner.
Great, okay, this gentleman right down in the front here. You, sir. Yes.
I just wanted to ask about the amazing archival footage of you as a child in the film. Who shot it? When's the last time have you seen it until today? Just talk about that. It's just amazing what that footage.
Okay, my father bought a wind-up Keystone camera in 1933 or 34, and over a few years he took some pictures with it and then didn't do anything after a couple of years. These were in 16 millimeter black and white film and aluminum film cans, and they just kicked around on our family. Sometimes my sister had it, and at one time my mother had it, and then pretty soon I had it, and it just sat on the shelf for the last 33 years. And then the Snoops snooped in my archive. Dug it out, and I didn't know that they'd really done something with it, and I found out that they showed me a little clips. Oh, I remember those. That's when I was little. I had that on my tricycle. So that whole area was covered by my father with a little camera. I still have the camera.
It's so neat to see those steps too outside the house that you grew up in. They still look exactly the same. Yeah.
The house was never changed. It just took all the drywall off and put good drywall on.
Yes. All right. I'll take another question. Sure. Well, I don't think we can mic up there, but you can talk real loud. Whoever yelled that up there, I can't see the voice, but yes. You.
Hold on.
Oh, I can project. I'm a singer.
You got it, Joe.
Do you have a favorite memory of Walt Disney?
All of the memories are so favorite, it's hard to pick just one. But the fact that I would watch him when something didn't work, and it was somebody's idea that didn't work, we lost the time and we lost the money. Normally you stop breathing because some managers will fire you if you ever do it again. Walt will just take a look at the situation and say, well, we should have found out what doesn't work, so why don't we get going, let's see if we can get this thing to work. The person whose idea that cost the time and the money, they resumed breathing and they saw that they were not going to get fired. Think of that. Everybody sees this situation. Walt understood, don't ever rebuke somebody and fire somebody and blame it for something we all worked on that didn't work. We're going to get it to work. Because if you chop a creative person, that person is never going to give you an idea that comes up any higher than average. Walt understood that no matter what your personality and the other things in your life, and if something didn't work once in a while, it's because, well, you come up with a big ideas that might work. That was so important. I watched him treat everybody just like that, and every time I got a chance to pass that on to people, that is the most important thing. So that is, if you say, what a memory was that technique of honoring people that are creative and never chopping them.
I really love that you say that because in an industry, in the entertainment industry as a whole, I think it's really easy for some people to be really negative. And I think for any time you're in a position where you've got a younger person working for you, I think it behooves us to pass on the positivity and lift people up rather than tear them down, because they're just going to pass on what you give to them, right? Yeah. All right. Great. Who else? Right here. Yes. Apologize. It's a little hard to see with the lights. Right? Oh. We love Tanya.
Tanya, hold on just a second.
Tanya, we're going to get you a microphone. One moment.
I'm Tanya McNorris, and I worked with Bob back at WED in the 1960s. But Bob, what's your favorite recollection of that time working at WED? When I started, there were only 39 employees, and then MAPO happened. Tell us about what you thought when you started there.
I started there in October of 1954, but I can assure you between that time and when we opened the park the following July, the Disney lot, the whole back lot was a western town, and I took my brown bag out as much as possible for my lunch hour, and I went out and I watched shoot 'em up cowboys with horses and poop and dust and all kinds of stuff. It was the most exciting place, but what was really weird, those people were looking at us, the Disneyland designers, the so-called Imagineers, wondering what kind of studio is this? They're trying to build cars, they're trying to make railroad stuff. It's a movie studio, for corn's sakes. So it had two aspects. that were counter-opposed, and each side was so curious about the other. It was a magical place.
Wow. For those of you who don't know, Tanya is an amazing designer, and she came on in the 1960s and actually did a lot of the designs for New Orleans Square, the Haunted Mansion, and worked very closely. She was lucky enough at a very young age to actually go on a research trip with Walt and Lillian and many other people to research New Orleans Square while it was under development. So Tanya's an incredible wed and engineer, so you should look her up. Who else? Anyone? Someone back there.
Here we go. I'll meet you halfway.
Sounds good.
I feel like Phil Donahue.
We need the Jeopardy music playing while this happens.
So, some Disney fans may know a little tiny blog called Disney Food Blog, and I'm a reporter for them, and we want to know what your favorite food at Disneyland is.
Favorite food at Disneyland?
I eat at Mimi's Cafe across the street.
It's a bowl of soup. Perhaps you've seen this in the Yes. Anyone else up in the donkey? You'll just have to kind of yell out because I really can't say it. Over there, okay.
All right. So, Bob, can you tell us why there is a basketball hoop on top of the Matterhorn?
Why? Yes.
I'd have to repeat what everybody else speculated, but the best knowledge that I know of, because I had a job a long time ago to install some equipment up in the top, and that area, as the building expands, in a way, or shrinks going up, there's a spot where there's a major floor where the elevators change and a bunch of other stuff. It's just big enough for a half court, and it was always used as a break room, sort of. So I think some witty soul decided, bring in a hoop and nail it up on a part of the building there. And there was just enough room to half court it. And then a few years ago, for the Imagineering story that Leslie Iwerks was shooting, I was asked to go up there and do a little fill-in stuff. I walked up there by myself, finishing the shot, and there was 3 balls on the floor. And I saw the hoop. And I have never gotten a hoop in my life, and I shoot underhanded. Old people do that. Ball went up and went that way, the next one went up and went that way, the next one went up and went right straight. Ooh, without touching the darn thing, and I screamed and yelled, that's the first hoop in my life. That's the part I remember best.
It's such a wonderful moment. If you haven't seen Leslie Iwerks' documentary, it's absolutely wonderful. You should check it out on YouTube. Who else? We got someone, the gentleman right there. You, sir. Yes, you. Yes, right there. Yes.
I work as a designer for an aerospace company as well, but I don't have the engineering license. Do you have any advice for someone who is finding themselves in a career rut, or for a generation of people who are slowly getting into a career rut?
That's an extremely good question from the standpoint. Hopefully you were curious a long time ago, but probably it's a little harder to do nowadays. It's probably also a little harder to do to get the education that some companies say that you must have, because that's going to cost you a lot of money. The best thing that I offer people that they do follow up with is, how much self-teaching can you do? Which means you force your own curiosity. We didn't have a computer, we didn't have internet, we didn't have anything. We still found the answers that we were going to need. It's much easier today, so what you need to do is get used to the fact that, get used to searching every day for something, and every hour that you stop texting with this infernal device, put it into something that's putting something in your brain that you can use.
Young lady with the mouse ears.
First of all, I had soup at that meeting today, so I feel like I'm part of some club. But what
dune buggy was designed 2 years after the voyage through inner space. All right? I had an idea of how we could make a continuous track of vehicles on a track, but have the body mounted on it so the body can rotate and dip up and down. This would allow the art directors to have people turn from one scene to another rather than always looking at the back of the car in front of you. Just doing it that simple. The next thing was, because the voyage to inner space was a kind of a very almost.
It was surreal, right?
Well, the part was just closing. The narration was kind of going to be like, oh, we're going to go down into the nuke and this sort of stuff. So I wanted to put a speaker on behind the people in each corner, which meant I made a body shell that kind of encapsulated you in kind of a little safe little place. And so to answer your dune buggy one, the dune buggy simply copied this identical vehicle from the voyage to inner space, but we painted it flat black.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I seem to recall you telling me that when you were thinking about this, you were up in John Hench's office and there was an apple on his desk and you started twisting it is that correct? Am I
oh yeah, okay. Right? What he's talking about is the genesis of the idea was we're always looking at new ways to come up with reliable attractions that will have a very high theoretical hourly throughput. And I was looking for a way to do that, but at the same time, how do we make the viewpoints and shows better? So the idea that I just described, John Hench had his candied apple on a little stand. That was a common thing a long time ago. And I picked it up and I twirled it. And I said, like this. A little apple would turn. And I said, we're moving people. I said, well, it's a mover. And then I said, oh, there's another word. Omni means all the way around. When you're a pilot, there's an omni range, the radio frequencies that guide you. I just happened to mention the word omni and mover, and then they got stuck, omni mover, and that was a temporary holding thing, and it's been held ever since.
It's an incredible innovation because it's the first ride vehicle where art directors and designers can point the guest at the scene that you want, so you don't have to build your show set, your scenes 360 degrees. It's kind of an amazing invention, and they're still using it today.
Well, it's an extremely simple, very simple principle because several things are the advantage. As you leave one scene, you can suddenly flip around and look at the other scene, depending on where you're making right or left turn. Right. That takes seconds of wasted space, what we call a segue from this scene to that scene. Right. You take that segue space out and add more seconds to every one of those scenes. So that means it's a much more efficient storytelling type of way to do that. But it's all a matter of a machine that is continuously run and all connected. You don't need an anti-collision system, and you don't do things like that. And in the case of those early ones, like the Haunted Engine, there's no electronics in the control like later attractions. It's full mechanically cogs and cams, and it bangs and it does all this weird stuff. People think, oh, this is weird. No, it's just bad design.
That's so great. Okay, well, I think we're about out of time, folks, but thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Bob, for that unforgettable conversation. And to each and every one of you, thank you for being part of this very special evening as we celebrate the life, legacy, and timeless imagination of Bob Gurr. This concludes tonight's program. Before you head out, don't forget, autographed Bob Gurr memorabilia is still available in the lobby, including a limited run of the movie poster and pin. The merchandise table will remain open for an additional 30 minutes. On behalf of Bob Gurr and from all of us on the production team, thank you for sharing the magic tonight, and have a safe journey home. Good night.
And that's it for our video. If you guys like this video and want more videos like it, leave a comment below, let us know. Like, subscribe. This is Jared's Journeys coverage of the Bob Gurr movie event. That's awesome. I love learning more about Bob Gurr. He's an amazing Imagineer. Really up there as one of the best. Might be the best one. But anyway, until next time, safe journeys.